Assalamu alaikum, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Scope. We are more than excited to have you back. Today is a very special day. Today is an amazing day. Today we're introducing to you guys
Reintroducing.
Reintroducing, because you guys seen him before, a very close friend of ours, Hashem Abdi.
Welcome. It brings us great pleasure.
Yeah,
You know what I
wonderful.
mean? It's one of those things now. It's rebranding. The Hashim you knew is no more.
Wow.
Right now we have a first-time author, an inspiration to all of us.
What?
First-time author.
First time what?
Ridiculous. I love
First-time
that.
author.
Don't wear it
Allah
out.
barik.
Don't wear it out. Don't wear it out.
Welcome,
Subhanallah.
bro.
Jazakallah khair, man.
How you feeling, bro?
It's good, man. Alhamdulillah, it's surreal. You know, that's funny. Yesterday, somebody was asking me, like, when you introduce yourself now, do you say the word author yet? And I was like, that is so corny. I don't think I ever get to that point where I'm like, hey, my name's Hashem. I write now.
Literally.
But no, alhamdulillah, it's been a long journey. Alhamdulillah, like, throughout all of this. So I'm excited to get into it. I'm excited to talk about it. This is something, you know, when there's something you've been working on for so long that you just think is gonna like get somewhere, and then one day you're thinking, like, I thought of this exact moment at one point. I was like, damn, at one point I'm probably gonna talk to Abdi about this. And here we are, subhanallah.
No, it's amazing. For those people who don't know you, can you introduce yourself, who you are, what's your story?
Tell us a
Right.
bit about yourself. What's going on?
So, assalamu alaikum. My name is Hashem. I am a first-time author, debut author, as you would call it. I am somebody who is, I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada. I've now been living in London for the past almost 3 years now. And alhamdulillah, I'm somebody who's very passionate, if you don't know already, about climate action, climate change education and awareness. And that's always been something that I've been trying to, grapple with and try to change people's perspectives on. And some of the work that I do is with different organizations like Somalis for Sustainability. Shout out to the Mandem. But also just always been trying to change the narrative. So there was no better way to change the narrative, I would thought, than storytelling. So this is something that not a lot of people knew about me. Even my closest friends didn't know that I was writing or I did write. But this is something that I was, working on in the background, and eventually now it is time to share it all with everyone. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
You know, Hashem, I think you're the first person I know that's a close friend of mine that has become an author.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I realized that on the way here, like, nobody that I know personally have sat down and written a book ready to be published. So there's a first of many, mashallah.
Woo.
Or maybe I don't know that many authors.
Or maybe you just don't know that many people. Like
either. But because obviously I'm a big fan of books, as we all are. And
yes.
but
Brandon Sanderson.
of course, you know what I mean. I'm listening, guys. I'm a big fantasy nerd, right? I've been reading novels for many years, but like, what made you want to, like? What's the first moment you had when you realized, hey, listen, you know what? I want to write a book. Or was it the idea first? Or was it the fact I want to be an author first? Which one came first?
So this actually started off. Goes way back. I was in Canada, in Ontario, we have this thing called Minicamp. It's a camp for Muslim kids to go to, and other Muslim kids come from all over the GTA, the Greater Toronto area, and then you go and you do activities. And my counselor at the times, they gave us like little notepads, and they're like, journal your thoughts. And I was like, what? They're like, nah, just write anything. And I started writing like my thoughts and stuff, and like huge shout out to Samar Shaib, and they like started that seed, and then afterwards I was like, okay, I guess I can write my thoughts now, which is like level 1. I started writing, like every Somali dude, I started writing poetry at one point, and I was like, oh my God, why am I doing this?
You had your poetry phase.
I was hiding my poetry. I was like, oh my God. I think no one read that.
Okay.
It was just kind of hidden. And then until I got to university is when I actually took a creative writing class. I was like, I got an elective. I've always been interested in storytelling. Let me go to this. And then in that class, they made us write short stories constantly. And one of the short stories I wrote is this first chapter that inspired this book. I wrote that one, and it was the professor was like, yo, this is good writing. And I was like, what? And then it just kind of like clicked, like, oh my God, I can actually write this. And then it's starting from there, and there was a whole journey from like that first chapter that I was like, okay. And that chapter, even though it has nothing to do with the theme of like the book itself, the themes of that like little like 500 word short story is what kind of inspired me to write this book.
That's ridiculous. So this started years even before the book you've written today, the novel.
Yeah, it did. And I think there's a big part of it because I moved to London. You know, like I've always wanted to write and I've always liked to read. But when I came to London, it's insane how many people here read. Like you're on the tube, everyone's reading. You're walking around, everybody got a book.
Yeah.
You go to a coffee shop, everyone's just sitting down reading. And I'm like, damn, I want to read too.
Yeah.
Like there's book clubs all around the city that you can find, right? Like shout out to the S1E4 book club. Like there's everywhere you go, you find people and that are reading. And I'm like, okay, maybe there is people that, you know, you could talk to that you can, that will probably resonate with your book. And the more I kept looking around, the more I was like, okay, I want a book that takes place in Somalia.
Yeah.
So then I started reading out and trying to find more of those. And then I was like, okay, there's a gap here. There's something that I can like speak to it. And
Fill in basically.
And that's how I was like, okay, the London ecosystem really like makes you want to write just because there's so
many people that are reading.
Yeah.
Quick plug.
Yes.
Somali Book Club.
Huge shout out. Huge shout out. My beta readers.
So who are they? What you guys do?
So this is, I don't, it started way before I came to London, but it's Sumaya and Amina. They basically bring people together every month and they pick a book and we talk about it. And what was good is because I was going to these book clubs and I was listening into people's thoughts, and I would read the book with them, and I'd come and be like, okay, so what you guys like and not like? And then they'd be like, we hate this, we hate that, we hate this, and I'm like, don't put this in the book, don't put this in the book, don't put this in the book. And then people would be like, we like this, we like this, we like that. I'm like, put this in the book, put this in the book, put this in the book. Okay. So it kind of gave me so much like firsthand data of like multiple people who are constant readers. And then the genres are like, it's like one time fiction, one time nonfiction, thriller, like dystopian, history. Like they just do so because basically they were reading like 12, 13 books a year, right? So you're just getting so much sample size of just data. So huge shout out to them. If you haven't gone, if you live in London and you want to find a cool book club, huge shout out. You guys should definitely check them out.
MashaAllah.
Listen, I've always wanted to write books. I remember I was telling this, and I think now that you've written a book, that's taken me from
you have to
gear 1 to gear 6. Do you know what I mean? So if you see me just bombarding your line, questions after questions about what to write, how to write, you know, what to avoid, don't mind.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm more than happy to. Like, I stand on the shoulders of people who helped me, right? Like even though I learned how to write, or I tried to learn how to write when I was younger, there was only when I came here that I meet Somali authors. Like I met like even Sideways, like he was one of the first people I was like, you have a book? And he was like, yeah, I got a book. And I was like, oh my God. And then I met Ayan. So Ayan was actually super instrumental. She was actually the first person I met who wrote a fiction book, and would give me the time of day to meet with her to be like, yo, how did it go and how did you do this? So huge shout out to Ayan. And then I was like, okay, like I got some samples. I know people that do this.
You've got the resources.
We got the resources. And then you go to Somali Week, and in Somali Week there's like 18 book launches at once. And you're like, oh my God, our people can write.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing all this and you're like, okay, what's stopping me? But I will say of that, like this, and I said this to so many people, writing this book was harder than my whole undergrad.
We'll get to that. What was the biggest challenge? Like,
okay, so the book When the Last Tree Falls. I don't know if I've never mentioned the book.
I was gonna say like before, like
we haven't even talked about what the book is.
Yeah, I was gonna say like briefly, without giving any spoilers.
Yes.
What's the title of the book?
Yes.
And give us like a brief synopsis of what's going on.
Okay, so my debut novel is called When the Last Tree Falls. This book revolves around a village, a remote village in Somalia, shortly after the fall of the federal government, and it shows the long-term and consequences of what happens when society kind of leaves people isolated and people start to do things that affect the environment. So a lot of times we talk about climate change and things happening in Somalia, but so many times people don't really empathize with what the people are actually going through. So for me, I really wanted to write a book that captured that, and that's what this story is about. This story gives you an insight, and it follows the journey of a guy named Naeem, as from a young boy all the way till he's like an adult, and how he experiences like his whole life changing just because people are, you know, doing things that are affecting him inadvertently. And I really wanted people to feel transported back. I know you guys got to read some of it, but I wanted people to like close their eyes and picture like what it was to be in Somalia back in the day. And alhamdulillah, like because I got to go back twice now in the last 2 years, I was really I was like taking notes. I was like tree, plants, grass, water. Like I was really trying to encapsulate as much as I could to put the imagery in the book. So yeah, that's kind of the synopsis of what the book's about.
I wanted to ask, what made you want to write this type of genre? As in, what made you think this is what I'm heading towards, rather than anything else that you could have written?
It's a good question. You know, in our deen, stories are a huge part of how the Prophet ﷺ and how Allah Azza wa Jal chose to disseminate information to us.
Yes.
And there's something beautiful about the concept of trying to influence an understanding of people through a story. And I was like, okay, I've tried so long, and you guys have heard me speak about this, to try to change people's perspective on the environment, about why they need to care about the world, why they need to care about climate change. And I was like, okay, I need to create a story that can understand it. Because I can go into the science, I can tell you guys about emissions, I can tell you guys about weather patterns, but unless you actually know somebody or actually feel somebody that goes through this, you're not going to be compelled to change. And really, like, the key word here is empathy, like trying to build empathy for people. Even though the characters are fictional, this is not a fictional story, right? Like, nothing that I write in that book is something that is far-fetched. I actually watched real videos that were taking place to get inspiration on how to write scenes, because I was like, there's so much source material, unfortunately, on climate disasters back home. So I was like, this book needs to be written. I asked myself a lot of times, am I the guy to write it? And that's a whole nother kind of part of like who gets to write about Somalia and who doesn't.
Yeah.
But that's why I felt like it needed to be written. This is why I wanted this genre. Historical fiction in and of itself is a powerful genre. Some of the best selling books of all time are historical fiction.
Absolutely.
But historical fiction that takes place in Somalia, that is told in English with the like kind of diaspora kind of lens, is kind of something that I've always wanted.
It's quite unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. If you've read the book, and when you do read the book, the way you set the scene, Allahumma barik, like, listen, expert, because you feel like you're there, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know how long that took you, but I whilst I was reading it, I thought I was actually reading and studying the book at the same time. You know what I mean? You know, like for people that are editors and do a lot of video editing, you're watching a video but looking at all the scenes and cuts and B-rolls and all that stuff.
Looking at details.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was doing that with the book, trying to how did it set the scene. So like if you look at just the page and see, like when you're trying to set the scene and trying to tell the story, there's so much going on in that book, Allahumma barik. So I feel like if people read this book, and then obviously Somali Book Hub, they can read this book and break it down.
Thanks.
They would love it.
Yeah.
Allahumma barik.
Yeah.
What were the challenges then?
Going back to your question about challenges.
Yeah, the challenges, I would say, like, one is like, I generally became a better writer throughout writing it. Like, as soon as I started, like, creative writing in and of itself is a skill. And it's like a muscle. You have to work it. And essentially, I gave myself a goal of writing 1,000 words a day. The amount of discipline it takes to go, leave your home, because I can't write at home because the infrastructure just wasn't for me. And I would just go to the British Library. I wrote so much of this in the British Library.
Was that the space?
I sat in the same spot beside the King's like library case, with the same coffee. Moa was writing her dissertation. I was writing the novel, and constantly just tapping away. The biggest challenge is really just the discipline. Like, so many people have ideas, and so many people want to write things, and they start it, but they never finish it. Why? Because like the drive and the motivation to finish it needs to the discipline, it has to be there. And I would almost like force myself to leave the house, because I was like, if I left the house, I'm paying for TFL. It's like $3.50 right there. I go to the cafe in the British Library, $3.50 for a coffee. Highway robbery, but I'm paying that on principle. Why? Because I can't leave that spot until I wrote 1,000 words. I paid £7 just to get there, right? That's a process, you know? So I almost like compelled myself to put in that. There's days I literally would show up and I'd sit there, I'd do all this, and I'd write like 50 words, and I'd just go home.
Yeah.
And I actually recorded myself sometimes, because like I need to record myself to see myself in this despair. Some days I'd go and I'd write 3,000 words. Why? Some days it's on, some days it's on. Yeah. The key is you have to show up every day. That's why I was saying this was the single most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. And I have a newfound respect for anyone who really takes the time to master a craft and put like effort into it. I find it so hard to critique books now. Genuinely. Okay. Like, no matter how bad the book is, I'm like, bro, this guy put in hours. Yo, this girl was working hours to write this book. Yeah. So I'm like, guys, give it a chance. I'm terrible at the book club now, because I'm like, guys, what if the author was thinking about this? And it becomes like such a thing, and it becomes so sympathetic, because I went through that process, and it's like, man, hours and hours just trying to get this book to completion, because I would revise so often, and I'd write it, I'd be like, I don't like this scene, I'd erase it, and I'd write it again, and then so that was really the hardest part. The other part was really understanding the technical elements of it. Creative writing is actually very technical as well. So when you're talking about the scene structure, every scene almost needs a hook. You need some action, and then you need like some conclusion, and then you need something to like lead you into the next scene, right? There's a podcast called, How to Write a Novel by Jim Thayer. Literally, that dude, I might have to send him an email just to thank him for like making this public, because he goes through everything in detail. He says, when you're writing a scene about dialogue, this is how your dialogue needs to sound like. And he'll say, Hemingway did it this way, what is it called? J.K. Rowling did it this way. And he'll tell you like, this is like, everyone has a different style of writing. You just have to find yours. And there's people who are called pantsers and plotters. If you're a plotter, you're somebody who sits there and you plot the whole novel from start to finish. A pantser is somebody who sits on his pants, types, and they type away, and they
That's me.
And they get it.
Yeah.
I realize I'm neither of those. Like, I have to plot some of it, but I can't plot it all. And sometimes I'll sit down and I plot so then I broke the book into like 4 parts. I was like, okay, let me plot part by part. And once I'm done the part, I'll see what I want in the next part. And that's how you'll see like the book is breaking up into different acts. And that's why I was like, okay, I sat down, I was like, okay, I'm going to write this. And I write it. So really understanding structure, scene structure, understanding like what techniques to use, how to not use it, how to use adverbs, how to use adjectives. Like, I had to relearn English basically to write this book.
How did he do that then?
I'm telling you, I was on YouTube so often about just like how to write a novel.
Okay.
What made you want to write the novel, or what was good about it? And then I'd continuously listen to podcasts. I remember there was one episode I was listening to about this woman who wrote Tomorrow. It's like a really good best-selling book right now. And she was talking about how she didn't get this bestseller until her 9th novel. And I was like, okay, bro, I got time, bro. I was like, bro, my first novel, yallah, bismillah. If like 20 people read this, I'm chilling. If 100 people read it, alhamdulillah. 50 people, 500 people read it, even better, But again, like the runway, like if you make the runway short for yourself, you say, listen, I need a bestseller in the first 2. It's like, you're really putting a lot of pressure on your first 2. Exactly. But if you're like, listen, most people don't write their bestsellers to their 5th, 6th novel, right? I'm like, I'm in this for the long run. Yeah. So I'm like, Hashem, just enjoy the process, get through it. So some days I'd record myself, I'd be so gassed. Like, oh my God, that was such a great scene. Hashem, great job. And I'd go back. So I literally ended up with like a collection of like 3 or 4 videos of just me saying, you did so terrible today. Or like, Hashem, you did so great today.
Yeah.
But that's really how I try to motivate myself and keep myself engaged with the process and getting to that point of like how to learn. But man, if you want to, there's so much resources out there. Creative writing, podcast, fictional writing podcast. There's YouTube videos. Literally, there's nothing you can't learn on the internet. You just have to put in the effort.
From a consumer of historical fiction, you know, there's elements that I always used to read, or listen to anyway. World building, structure, stories. You mentioned you're not really a plotter. You're neither, basically.
Yeah.
What inspirations did you have from other books or other sources that made you think I'm going to write my style in this particular way?
That's a good point. I think one of the books that I read that really like shaped how I wrote this book is this old book. It's one of the first like books that came from like an African author that did super well. It's called Things Fall Apart.
Things Fall Apart.
Yeah.
Okay.
By Chinedu Achebe, I think.
Okay.
And this book, I remember I was reading it and I was like, I can close my eyes and I can picture this village. Like the way he described it was so masterful that I could literally close my eyes and I could see the hut. I could see the clay walls. I could see the 3 houses in the compound. I could see the wrestling ring. Like he was so good at like, he created a village and he just made the story develop in the village. And I was like, this is beautiful. And I was like, I really want something like this. So that was like a real interesting. And this book was written like before I was born, like way before I was born. So this is an old book. That was one of them. And then there was other like storytelling things like you guys, I'm sure everyone has read like The Alchemist, like the journey, like making the story a journey and not like just point by point by point. Like I wanted people to grow with the main character. So you'll see Naeem grows continuously throughout the story because of his circumstance, and that's kind of like part of that alchemist. So it's like Things Fall Apart mixed with The Alchemist, and then the other part of it is like trying to add like the Somali Nima to it. And the Somali Nima part is like, you really like, for me it was like I had to go and like watch old school BBC radio, like dun, 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 dun. Literally I had to go watch some of those videos. I had to listen to it. I was like, okay, this is kind of how they talk back then. This is how they act. This is what it like they dressed like. So I had to do a lot of research. Like the amount of research that it takes to write a good novel is like significantly underestimated, because all it takes is one of their 3. That's not how we talked back then, or that's not how we.
You know what I mean? And you don't want to do it like that, basically. And it shows clearly that obviously it's quite embarrassing to that point. You'd be like, this is not how we talk, and it shows like you didn't research properly, which you don't want to do. And not only that, it's like you're not piggybacking of anything really. This is a very unique project. This is not something a diaspora person has written about Somali in this particular context. Yeah. In the theme of climate change. So it's like you're basically a pioneer, bro. Yeah, basically.
But I would say, like, how many people do you know have a degree in sustainability, right? How many people do you know have graduate studies in climate risk management? Like, it comes back to that thing I was talking about earlier. Niche, like, why did I feel like I had to write this? What gave I asked myself so many times. I was like, imposter syndrome galore, man. I'm telling you, like, part of the reason why I went to Somalia is because I was like, I don't feel like I can write a book about Somalia if I've never been there. True. So I literally went there and I was like, I need to go there twice, bro. I need to be on the ground. I need to go to a farm. Like, I literally went to I went to a farm just so I could see what it looks like to be a farmer. I wanted to ask them. Like, I went to a place that experienced severe flooding just because I wanted to see where the watermarks ended in the village and how people reacted. Like, so a lot of it was like, I had to give myself the license. And there's this quote, I remember it was like, essentially like, if today, like, the world ended and you had all the books in a bookstore, you will never run out of things to read. Like, literally, there is enough stories and books that you could read from now till you die, and you would probably never run out of material. So what makes your book something that needed to be written? And the only actual answer to this is because you wanted to write it. So I had to convince myself that, listen, this is something I wanted to write. This is something that needed to be written. And the story of our people is beautiful. And like, the cultural elements of it, and the how connected people are, good and the bad, is something that I wanted to shed light on. So that's why I was like, I needed to write it, and I had to almost be like, even if people say, "Yo, who this guy? Why is he writing this?" I was like, I still want to write it, and I still need to get it out there.
Facts.
No, there's so many Harta incredible, I think, moments where you read the book in different chapters and you reflect. There's that, obviously, if you've read the book, you realize there's subtle message in there, you know what I mean? And if you read it and you close your eyes, you know Hashem has written this book, because if you know Hashem, you know what I mean? Allah Barak. And I'm reading it thinking, I see, and then you become empathetic to what's happening in the world, and the reality of what's actually going on today, and whether you want to ignore it or not. I think it's a conversation we had previously where Hashem was like, listen, the major countries, you know, the big countries are probably the main culprits.
They are,
you know what I mean? But we are the ones that suffer the most. You know what I mean? And when you read this book, you're like, for sure.
You understand a lot better.
Wallahi. Talking about imposter syndrome and vulnerability. How did you go over that?
You know, I'm not gonna lie, genuinely a lot of people around me, like, were inspirational. Like, even this shirt, bro, like, shout out to Musa. If you haven't gotten your Tribe Athletics, get the shirt. But, like, think about how Musa operates. Like, he's one of the most creative people we know, but he just puts things out there. Like, he doesn't care if it bangs, doesn't bang. He's like, it's just out there. And even my older brother, like, I was talking to my older brother about this as well. Like, Yusuf was telling me, he's like, because he also does design stuff. And he's like, bro, the hardest thing is just putting it out there. If it gets 1 like, it gets 1,000 likes. Just do it. And I was like, man, that's crazy. Because once you put so much time into something, you almost want to hold it. You almost don't want to let it out. Like, literally before the conversation of that car that day with you and Salman, I was adamant that I was like, I'm going to keep this in the archive until I feel like it's ready. But the book had been done for like 6 months already. And I just didn't feel confident. And literally, they're like, bro, what do you have to lose? And I was like, damn, you guys are right. Like, I have nothing to lose. So the imposter syndrome and, like, trying to put yourself out there is one of those things that, subhanAllah, like, you never regret it. Like, once you put yourself out there, and you generally, if you believe in your art and you believe in what you're trying to, like, put out there, people will always gravitate towards, like, authenticity. People will gravitate towards something you believe in. So as long as you believe in it and people know that you're doing this for the right reasons, like, 9 times out of 10, people will rock with it. And it's just hard to see that when you're in it. And when you're in it, you're just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
I was shocked. We're in the car. He was like, I just randomly thought, Hashem, how's the book coming along? He was like, damn. I said, what do you mean? Like, he was like, oh yeah, it's done. So I was like, okay, so what's the next steps? He was like, I need to create a cover for it. There's so many things I need to do.
Procrastination.
So many. I was like, all right. So
I had a list. I was like, so I got to go like 8 things.
Well, I looked at him and was, all right, so what are you starting with? And if you know Hashem, you know he's meticulous. So I'm thinking, this guy is waffling right now. Like, what's the next plan? What's the next step? He was like, I'm not too sure, to be honest. He was like, I don't know if I should do it, if I shouldn't do it. I'm not even sure anymore. I was like, nah, listen, this needs to come out. It needs to come out yesterday. And it is difficult, to be honest, when you're putting yourself out there and it's open for everyone to judge, for everyone to say, actually, I love this bit about it. Actually, this book was rubbish. It's open to everyone's interpretation, you know what I mean? And when it's your little baby, it's difficult.
It's incredibly hard, man. Yeah, I think you're really brave, mashallah.
I'll
be honest with you, man. If I wrote a book, bro, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think I'll tell anybody.
Literally.
I was just reread it at home myself.
That's what I was doing. I was like, yo, every couple months I go back, I'm like, oh, this is fire.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, put it away.
You'd be like, Jibril, whose book is that? Oh, I don't even know, some next brother.
Yeah, that guy's fire, bro.
That guy's fire.
Yeah.
You know, this book, all the characters, where's the inspiration from? Is it from your, like, real life? or is it truly fiction?
Can you tell us, without spoiling, the main characters? Maybe a bit of personality.
Jailani.
So I can tell
Ali,
you guys.
I also want to know about Ali. Where the hell did Ali come from? Because he's such a weird character.
So
Go on.
some of the main characters I'll tell you about. So Naeem is very much, I would consider, like, he reminds me of like an everyday kid, of the guys that I met when I was in Hamar, when I was in Afghanistan, when I was in these places, and I was meeting a regular like kid that was like just a regular, al hafada. He's based off like that stereotypical boy.
Okay.
But Jailani, however, that guy is actually based off my grandfather. My grandfather, Allah yarhamu, I've never met him.
Okay.
But I've always heard stories about him. And he also worked at a post office. And he also did a lot of the things that is talked about in the book, which was like he was very much a community gatherer.
Shooter type.
He's a shooter type guy. And even the quote of the guy saying, "You're our Jailani," it comes from genuinely my grandfather being told that.
Okay.
And I was like, that's such an interesting character. And I was like, okay, like this guy needs to be somewhere in the book. And a lot of the other characters, like even Ali reminds me of one of my uncles that I did not get along with, because I feel like some people have habits that is very hard, like they're so distinguishable. Like, and for characters, and you'll find this, Charlotte, when you're reading it, is like every character has to have something that like just draws people or negates people away from them. Like, so it was very interesting coming up with characters, because every character is a mashup. Even Jailani is not just my grandfather himself; it's a mashup of different characters that I've met in my life. But majority of the characters that you meet throughout the story, as you progress, most of them are based off archetypes of people that I've known, and similar kind of sentiments of like how I believe they would react in that situation. The best advice I ever got about writing was like, make a strong character, put them in the scene, and if you know your character well enough, the scene will write itself. Right? Like, if for example, if I wrote Jibril and I know Jibril well enough to write his character, and I dropped Jibril somewhere in like in a forest, I kind of can guess kind of Jibril's first step, you know?
Yeah.
I can, so you kind of like, the more like I became to the point where I closed my eyes. This sounds crazy, but bear with me for a second. It got to the point where I got so familiar with these characters that I closed my eyes, and I would be like, the scene would be playing out. Like, one character would talk to another character, and I'd be typing out the scene, and I'd be like, and he'd say something wrong. I'd be like, wait, no, pause, guys, rewind it back. And then they would do it again, and I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. And then I'd keep it going. So it got to the point where like I was almost like, the scene is in my head. I could see the scene, but the characters are kind of driving the scene, because I spent enough time trying to build out those characters. And the inspiration of them was from people or different people that I've met. Alhamdulillah, I've been privileged enough to live in like 3 different countries, met so many different people. So the people I got to meet, alhamdulillah, have been very interesting. So it does help, being well traveled to be able to write.
Absolutely, man. Traveling is key. It opens up your mind to something else, man. I want to ask about, every author, they don't work alone. They have a lot of help.
Yes.
They have a lot of people. Which people helped you out in this regard, and who do you want to give a shout out to? Basically, that's what I want to ask you.
That's tough. There's a lot of people. Like it really does take a village to write a book. Like, because it just a lot of people. Like even you guys, like pressuring me. Like, peer pressure is a great thing, by the way. Like, well, used positively, of course. But like, of course, like my wife, like Mawal, like she, like her just choosing to do this master's, ilahi, like I always say, I was a writer and I got married and became an author. So it's like having somebody who was like, she was doing a task and I was like, oh, okay, I want to do a task too. So you kind of just like do it together. So without like her choosing to do her master's, I would have probably never finished writing this book, because I wouldn't have been like, oh, the library is a good place to write, actually. And then it's kind of getting that down. I think also like the beta readers, I think when you get people to first time read the book, you're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I got 4 people to read this book.
Okay.
And the 4 people were obviously 2 smaller girls, smile guy and non-smile guy, and I was like, I need all of your opinions, because I was like, let's try to get this in your opinions. And I was very like, oh my god, I want to hear what you guys have to say. And when they started saying like positive things, I was like, oh my god,
What's going on there?
what's going on? And I'm like, and I was like, no, bad, like tell me bad things. And they're like, okay, here. But then, subhanAllah, I started to realize like some of the things that they were saying was like one person would like it, one person would hate it, and then another person would hate this part, and one person would love that part. And it was almost crazy, because some people's best favorite parts was somebody was like least favorite part. So then their perspective really helped shape like what I wanted in the story better. So like that was another thing. So I was really appreciative of that. I think the other people, like, yeah, like I think just the inspirations I was telling you, like Ayan, like huge shout out to her. Muhammad Sideways too, like huge shout out to him. Like him just being like somebody to be like, oh, this guy wrote a book, and like him just talking things.
Point of reference.
Yeah, like, and yeah, Adi Wahab, Adi Wahab is really like, he's a huge help now. Like if you guys know, if you haven't checked out, Adi Wahab has a book out on his questions on what to do to get on marriage, and like he's been somebody who's been promoting that book for months. So the long game of like, you know, putting the book out there is something that he's really good at. So huge shout out to him. Yeah, like my family, like people tell me stories. There's a whole acknowledgement page, guys. Go through the acknowledgement page on the thing. But yeah, it does take a village to really support you to write something.
What's the difference between like publishers versus independent?
Okay, so the phrasing for this is traditional publishing and self-publishing. Okay. So actually, my book is considered a self-published book, because, and this actually talks a bit about why you're saying like, oh, why do you not have confidence? Like, why are you so down? It's because I basically finished writing this book around like March time, and I was like, okay, Hashem, this book is good, decent. Some people have given you feedback. You wrote a nice cover letter, which is basically, in traditional publishing, you can't go to a publishing house and be like, hey, publish my book. You actually have to go to an agent, technically a middleman, to say, hey, can you represent me and pitch my book to multiple publishing houses? But to do that, you have to get the literary agents to accept your book, and they get hundreds of submissions a day. Their inboxes are like a war zone. So for you to get your book in there, get them to agree to it, get them to represent you is like, and you're only allowed to send them three chapters, sometimes even one chapter.
Okay. So
and you have to send them a synopsis of the book and a cover letter that talks about who you are. You put it together in a nice little package, you put an effort into it, and then you send it out to as many people as you can, right? The percentage of people getting that is like 1 to 3%.
Oof.
So it's very, very hard. And subhanAllah, I started like in like March
2024.
Last year, 2024. And bro, I tell you, I sent it to hundreds of agents. Bro, not a peep. I was like, damn. I was, well, super humbling, mashallah. But I was like, you know, when you think, oh, I hit it. I love this book. My friends love this book. This is great. Anyone will take this book. Bro, after like when I got to like, when you see the 100, you're just like, yeah. Maybe I just don't got it. Maybe it's not it.
But you can see how J.K. Rowling got rejected so many times as well.
Yeah, but like, I think those stories like that you hear all the time. But you never think it's your story.
Yeah.
And then I really kept thinking, maybe it's just not ready. Maybe I need to keep editing it. Maybe I need to do other things. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to put this away because I have an idea for what I want to write next. I was like, let me just start the second book. This first book, I'll come out the vault once the second book comes out, and everyone's like, oh my God, this guy's so fast. He wrote 2 books. But then I talked to you guys, and you guys are like, are you crazy?
Bro,
like, they're like, social media, bro. And I was like, I forgot that was a thing. And then they're like, bro, you have a brand. You have people who support you. You've been out here doing all this work. Bro, just put the book out there. Let it live. Like, let it flow. And it's kind of like we talked about before. It's like putting your kid out into the world, like, and hoping that they survive. So for me, I had to really like reflect after that day we had that conversation, like in like December. I was like, what's actually stopping me? And I was like, really, self-doubt is crippling sometimes. And especially when it was reinforced by that many rejection letters. I was just like, no, they don't even give you rejection letters, to be honest. Rejection letter means they respond. They just don't respond.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then on top of that, I met other authors who got like the first 10, they got like 6 replies.
So you're thinking, I know where I am.
Yeah, I'm a scrub. I said, yo, I'm a scrub. And then I was like, okay, maybe it's just not it. So then after we had that conversation, I was like, you know what, Hashem, let's go through it. Let's edit the book and let's get it the full book to now the beta readers I talked to you about. And when they all came back with such positive reviews, I was like, okay, let's get this started. I made the book cover. Shout out to Osama. He is one of the he's the designer, the illustrator for the book cover. He made it, and like what I had envisioned, he did it so well that I was like, man,
Mashallah.
like bro, put on a t-shirt, like we're good. And then I was like, okay, like now I made a TikTok account. I didn't have TikTok before, so I made a TikTok account. Nice. I started doing photo shoot, like headshots. Like I called Adam. I said, yo, Adam, I need some headshots. So we went and we did some headshots. And then it's just like kind of things started snowballing faster than even I could control it. And then now it's like people are like stopping me on like people that I know, like, hey, by the way, like congratulations. When can I buy the book? And I'm like, what? Yeah. So
social media is powerful, man.
Social media is powerful. People I haven't seen in years. Like yesterday I met a guy. I haven't seen him in 6 years. And he's like, I saw you on TikTok. You're an author now, right? And I was like, subhanAllah. Yeah. First of all, I'm like, bro, you didn't even like the post. Because I would have seen who you were. But the fact that people see it, and I think for me, it's just kind of getting into that like mindset. But that's kind of where the self-doubt came from. And that's why I was like, okay. So then traditional is one side. Self-publishing is you do it all. But when self-publishing is kind of a loaded term, because what you're doing is you're actually utilizing publishing companies, so like Amazon KDP, Drafted Digital, these like kind of
Penguin.
Not Penguin. Penguin's are actual.
Is that traditional?
They're a traditional publishing house.
Okay.
Like self-publishing places are places that you give them your book, they'll send you a copy. You say good copy, and then people can order on their website, and the book goes to their house straight.
Okay.
And then also like you can make the book available so that when people go to a bookstore and say, hey, I want When the Last Tree Falls by Hashem Abdi, they can go and the book will come to that place in like a couple of days. So
they can order it in, basically.
They can order it. So it's like technically everything a traditional publishing do, but you have to do everything yourself.
Okay.
What a traditional publishing house would do would say, Abdiftah, you wrote a great book, right? Or like they'll be like, okay, Hashem, we like your book When the Last Tree Falls. We're gonna pay you X amount for the rights to this book. Secondly, that book is no longer yours. Yeah. Like you give it to the publishing house. They do whatever they want. They pick the cover. They tell you what it looks like. You have some say, but essentially then they write you a check. They like the average is like something around like 10K, something around like that. Sometimes they'll give you a 2-book deal, 3-book deal, whatever. But essentially they buy your book from you. They buy the rights from the book from you. And then your job is just to go and talk about the book. But you don't get any sales from the book unless you make past a certain point. So sometimes the contract will be like, oh, you have a royalty of like X% per sale. But most of the time, like especially for debut authors, bro, you're lucky if you get like anything back other than like the initial check that they signed to you.
So your one time, like they give you one time offer.
Yeah.
They buy it off you. They do all the promotion. They get all the money from it if it does well.
Yes.
You take it.
Wow.
They took it.
But the thing is, but as an author, think about it like this. The appeal to that is like, I'm like, alhamdulillah, I'm just going to write the next book.
Yeah.
Qata, let me click away. So that's why when you see some authors writing 2-3 books a year, it's because they're like a factory.
Yeah.
They're like, the agent's like standing at the door like, yo, did you finish the manuscript? Did you finish the transcript? Did you finish the manuscript? Okay. Like, let me get it to the editor. And like, so what I did is I had to go and find my own book cover designer, right? In traditional publishing, they would have done that for you. I had to go find my own editor. I went on readsy.com. I found this nice Scottish woman from her name is from Scotland, and she edited the book for me. And she's a professional editor. She does editing for publishing houses, but she put her services on the Readsy website. Readsy is like basically like Fiverr, but only for book stuff. So like you can find like editors, you can find book cover designers, website designers, all that stuff. So that's where I went, got all that stuff done. My older brother was like, I'll make you the website. I was like, great. So I have the website now. I have the editor, professional editor, and then I have the cover. So that's kind of what you have to do all by yourself. But if you did it yourself, traditional publishing, they do all that for you.
But I feel like this way works better for you.
Yeah, because this is, as you said earlier, right? This is a undiscovered territory to them.
That's what I'm saying.
So they're like, this market doesn't exist. So I have to create the market, show them that the market exists, and then maybe they'll accept whatever I write next. But until I prove to them that this is actually a story worth telling and a story that people want to hear, especially when it comes to things like climate change, especially things come to do with like the Somalia as a whole, like, is something that still needs to be seen. People will tell you stories, but it's a lot of like,
yeah. I was gonna say if it was like a, I don't know, like a traditional genre that is a normal bestseller, like, I don't know, romance or crime story or something, they probably would have latched onto it. But this is a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
Do you get it? So
there's not romance, it's not fantasy, and it's not thriller.
No romance at all.
No, there all of those things. In a good story, there is romance. In a good story, there is thriller. In a good story, there is suspense.
Absolutely.
All those things. But it's like, what is your defining genre,
Absolutely.
right? And a lot of times people write nowadays not to write good stories, but they write to sell good stories.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, bro, if this story sells, great. If it doesn't, I just want the story to be told.
And I feel like with the network that you have and the people that you know, mashallah, I feel like everyone like is been with the journey with you, and you know they want to support Allah Barak, which is amazing. So you know, I feel like it's the right approach.
Yeah. No. What's the next step for Hashem? You've alluded to it. There will be a second book, inshallah, right?
Inshallah. I think this is the start of a journey, right? Like I've given myself a long runway. Like my hope is to keep writing. It's like, do you call somebody who ran one marathon a runner?
No.
Right? They got to keep running.
Yeah.
So it's like, but the good thing about finishing a marathon is like, you're like, oh, I have the ability in me. I have the capabilities to do this marathon.
So.
And that's essentially what a novel writing, like once you get the first one under your belt, you're like, okay, I know what that did. And that's why when they say people write their bestsellers by their 5th, 6th book, is because they get that muscle. They start to say, oh, I know what to do. I know how to get my best story out. I know like what I want to encapsulate in the story, and then they put it together and it gets their best product of them. Like you make so many mistakes in your first book, but by the end of it, you're just like, and some people actually do smashing well. They get like debuts and they go like bestseller right away, and mashallah to those people. But like most people, they learn as they write and they get better and better as they do it. And then by the time they get to their 4th, 5th book, they're like, yeah, I'm a vet. They sit down, they know exactly what story needs to be told. They know how the story needs to be told. They know how the characters need to be like created. It's a beautiful process, and I'm excited at the prospect of writing my next book. I'm excited because I essentially told myself once I'm done like the launch event book for this, I'm gonna like start the process for the next one, inshallah.
Allah. You've given so many gems, Allah Barak, today. But I wanted to ask, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone who would like to start writing?
Ooh, this is a good question. I honestly believe that at the end of the day, accountability to yourself is one thing. But having a group or a partner or somebody who you know will hold you to it is just as important. In the sense that like getting a writing group, getting a writing partner, getting a team, getting somebody to say, listen, I give you full autonomy, even paying the person, be like, listen, you're my writing accountability, like you're my writing essentially like reviewer, like make them an editor or something. Say, listen, I'm going to send you a couple chapters every month, every week. And if I don't get it, like you have the ability to berate me to get me to do it. Because some people actually just need the accountability. So I think trying to figure out what motivates you. If you're a motivated person, you probably don't need to hear this advice. But most people are people who are super passionate, but passion is fickle. Like it's there sometimes, it's there, not there. But what you need to do, it's habit over motivation. Build a habit, build a routine, find a spot. Make your brain know that when you get to the spot, there's nothing happening but writing. Even if nothing happens, you're sitting there for an hour. Even if you write nothing, you're going to sit there. And that's what I would recommend for people. Like another thing that I did early on was like I had a writing group with a couple guys. And mashallah, all those guys end up doing something, right, with what they wanted to do. Like, and it was just, it was 5 dudes. We literally meet up at a cafe once a week, and we'd all just try to write something. And somebody was writing, shout out to the boys, and one of them was writing like a story for a video game. Somebody was writing a play. Somebody was writing poetry or like some like reflections for like a coffee table book. Somebody was also writing a novel. So it was like a bunch of dudes just coming. But the key was the environment is what dictated the writing.
Yeah.
So having that environment, like the same way the Prophet ﷺ, like, you know, the hadith of the man who killed 99 people. Like the first thing they told them, like to actually change, was what? Change your environment. So if you're actually serious about trying to be an author, if you're serious about trying to finish your book, I would say like set yourself accountability targets, keep yourself to them, and get yourself in an environment where you know you can put those work together.
Where can they find the book, and is there any events coming up for you? Any key dates?
So yes, inshallah, by the time this episode comes out, the book will be available on any place you find a book. If it's at your local bookstore, if it's at a library, if it's on Amazon, wherever it may be, Kindle, wherever it is, the book will be listed. When the last tree falls, will be available, hopefully, inshallah, by then. So yeah, April 20th, inshallah, that's going to be the date. So look out for events. If the tickets are already out, make sure you get those tickets. If not, stay tuned for them. But yeah, those are the two big things coming up for that. So the books, inshallah, will be available for everyone to order at least post Eid. So if this is post Eid, it should be available everywhere you find it. But yeah, really just talk about the book. If you like it, if you enjoy it, message me, tag me. If you didn't like it, cool, let me know. I don't know if I'll respond, but just let me know. But yeah, it's an exciting thing. I think once you're past the initial stage of self-doubt and confusion, you're just like excited now. Now you're just like, okay, khalas, the roller coaster is already going. I might as well enjoy the ride. And now I'm just like trying to fall in love with the process of getting it out there and getting people to read it. Like just the other day, my older brother finally read parts of it, and he said, bro, I didn't know you were this good of a writer. And I said, I started laughing. I was like, subhanAllah, like even my older brother didn't know, right? So it's just stuff like that just makes you laugh and smile and makes you like, okay, cool, this is good. This is a good feeling. But generally, yeah, just hopefully people read it and they take something out of it. And, even if they're a little bit more empathetic to people who are going through climate, catastrophes, or if they care a bit about people back home, that's a win in my book.
Sometimes you don't even have that self-belief yourself. You know what I mean? Like you start writing, you get better, you actually do it, and then you think, wow, this is amazing, What is one message, if you had to tell your younger self, what would it be?
Yeah, I think my younger self, what I would tell them is like, your story, the stories to be told that are in your head are worth telling. I think I had so many ideas, so many short stories. I have a bank of short stories on my Google Drive, just sitting there. And the thing was, it was like I never felt that I was good enough to tell stories about a place that wasn't my home. But Somalia, back home is always everyone's home, right? Like at the end of the day, no matter who tells you, oh, you can't talk about the area, you can't talk about a place, there's always going to be a naysayer. Yeah. And I think really believing in yourself, in saying, listen, this is a story that it's in my head, and you're the only one that could tell it, because no one else has that story. No one else has the thing. And the amount of times that like I would see a story and I'm like, I don't know if I'd write it that way, or I don't know, like I'd read so much. Like I read, the amount of books I used to read on the way to work, back from work. I'm not like you. I need physical books. Like I have physical books. So it's like the amount that I read way too much, that I like at this point, it's like younger Hashem, if I was going to tell him anything, I'd just be like, listen, tell the stories, because if you don't, like, who will?
Wallahi, Hashem, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so
for
much
having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
We are more than excited to finish reading the book.
I'm excited too, man.
I think the audience that are going to receive the book are going to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
I
no,
think so.
it's
inshallah.
amazing.
Absolutely.
I appreciate
So-
it, man.
Thank you guys for joining us on another episode of Scope. Check out the links below for where you can purchase Hashim's book. Inshallah, the description should be there, and all his socials should be there as well, so you can follow the journey.
Inshallah.
And make sure you come April 20th as well, inshallah. And we'll catch you in the next one.